Okay, so my good mics are away. I had an issue with the charging of them. So I'm on backup mics. And I've also misplaced my drip. So for these reasons and others, I've just been smashing out work, not actually filming anything. It's quite nice. Actually, I don't know why I don't do it more often. Anyway, an update as to what I've got done. So we'll start with the most important piece, this little guy here. And he goes down in there just to close that off. There was nothing there initially, and I don't know if it's going to be helpful or not, but it may as well be. I'm going to tie this back into here, and this is extremely flimsy, so everything I can do to make this stronger, I will do. This piece here is the piece that ties those two together, just like that. I made that in two pieces because I wanted to get a good weld on here, as opposed to making it in one piece and then having to try and come through from the backside to weld. So this will tie. This will be tied into the floor, and also this, and it'll also tie back into this and everything. Make it all sort of one piece. Similarly, this piece here closes off this chassis rail. I don't know how well you can see because this bit doesn't like sitting. It just wants to fall in constantly, but it sits there like that. Again, there was nothing there initially. In that little strengthening rib, it was open. But I'm thinking, been thinking about the way the subframe is going to want to move, or any of this is going to want to move, and the subframe is going to, at this point, only really be going up and down. So up's not really going to be affected too much. It's more down, I guess, when I'm cornering to the right, loading up that side, unloading this side. It's going to try and twist the chassis subframe sort of out of the chassis. So I need to try and stop this from going down. So since this whole reinforcing bracket is only attached to one side of this little box, it could quite easily like bend it, because I've taken this attachment point here out. So I think by boxing that in now, it's going to want to have to try and twist this entire box, which is attached to the entire chassis of the car. So it can't do that, is my thinking. I may be wrong. I don't know. That is what's going on there. And then the piece de resistance is the actual floor plate itself, which sits in there. And I can tie, obviously, everything back into itself. So I can get a good weld between here and this subframe reinforcement, and then from the subframe reinforcement to this piece, and then this piece to the floor, make it all one. I need to make this little guy here to hold this end up, which will also further strengthen that. I put a slit in here so that I can weld through to the top of that piece, just to try and stop. Well, I could have really cut it off. It doesn't need to be there anymore, but it's a little bit extra, and it will also help strengthen this floor plate as well, because secondary concern is making this itself strong, because it holds the brake pedal, and the brake pedal obviously sees a fair bit of force, especially if you're spinning out of control and smash it pretty hard. So the main 4 bolt holes are these two and these two, and I need to stop this from wanting to twist this way. So the way I've done it is to make these 2 bolt holes very, very close to this flange here. So I think I'll drill through weld captive nuts to the bottom of that 3mm, and then underneath I'll put a piece of angle which comes up off of that box and back over to that captive nut, just to try and stop anything here wanting to bend when I hit the brakes. And hopefully that should be strong enough. I think I've also brought it back out to pick up this flange here, and I will make just a little tiny piece just to pick up this bit of floor down here. It's probably not going to do anything, but you know, I need to close that off anyway, because again, I don't want stuff getting in or out of anywhere where it couldn't previously. So I don't want, like dirt getting up in there, and I don't want stuff getting up in the chassis rail or coming out. I'll probably also drill a few holes along here and plug weld into this. There's not much there, but again, it may as well be. There's no reason to not do it. So yeah, I'll make the last little triangle, and we will start burning this in very, very gently because it's all pretty dirty still. It would be nice to TIG weld it all in, but because I want to get good good welds, I kind of made everything with a little bit of a gap to it so that I can weld the gap and it will kind of pull everything together. Yeah, no, that all sounds really dumb when I say it out loud, but in my head it makes perfect sense. I'm sorry if I'm a bit flat today, but I found out we might be moving and I might be losing my nice shed, so I'm kind of bummed about that. But anyway, if you guys have been watching this channel for a while, you're used to getting fucked by shit content. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. You're used to bad videos, so deal with it. All right, let's do it. All right, new day, new shirt, same job. Let's get into it. So, let me just put you up on a tripod here. Now, I don't know why, but in Australia, when you buy a high tensile bolt, they sell you an 8.8, which isn't high tensile in Australia, at least. High tensile is 11 or 12. 8.8 is different to the American grade 8. 8.8 is the equivalent of about an American grade 6. But anyway, it's just my life. It's nothing else, you know. But that's assuming that my fat ass can shear 6 bolts of any tensile strength. Actually, while we're on the subject of whinging, it appears also that Bunnings have changed the welding gloves that they stock. Now your choices are shit and shit instead of the good ones they used to have. But, and I mean, this isn't just me being precious. Like, these are criminally bad welding gloves. And my other one got a hole in it and I got sick of being burnt. So whatever, they will do until I get to a proper welding store and buy better ones. That all aside, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do captive nuts. These obviously don't fit down in there. So I just bought these because it's the, I was going to say cheapest way to get high tensile flange nuts, but like 8 bolts was like $20, which is a bit of criminals. But anyway, it's a sad day and there's no actual bolt stores open. I like the flange bolts because it gives you a nice place to weld to. If you get other normal bolts, some of them, you know, where the taper on them is, which makes it easy to get the spanner onto, you can actually get weld like in there, which gets into your threads, whereas a flange bolt sits nice and flush. I just prefer them. It's a personal thing. Now I need to get this square on here, and a drama that you can have is even if you drill oversized holes and then you bolt your whatever you're doing down, put the nut on the back side, and once you bolt everything together to get your nuts in alignment, you can still have all your bolts shoved to one side of the hole, which means that once you've welded everything and you go to install it, I don't know how best to explain it, but you'll have obviously a hole clearance through the product, the welded nut on there, and it'll be sort of like off to one side of the hole, and you'll have just a little bit of steel like in your threads, and like the bolt will still go in and out. It just becomes a mammoth pain in the ass because you've got to like graze the side of this on your way past. So it's a thing to think about when you're doing captive nuts. You sort of have to drill your holes, bolt it down loosely, and then sort of work out where like all the way back is, all the way forward is, all the way one side, and make sure you centralize it so that all the bolts are going through clear holes and straight into the nut, so you can do them up with your fingers. Otherwise you need to like use a spanner to run them all the way down. And I don't know why I'm talking about this. It's just a thing that I have experienced in the past, and little things like that really get on my nerves. So I thought I would give you that tip. So I have marked twice where I want to bolt this down. The first marks are there and the second marks I actually scratched through. I moved it over mainly because when I welded in here, there was a little bit of weld and I just wanted a clearance for the clutch pedal to make sure it didn't bind on there, so I moved it over a half a hole. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill one, probably 2 holes, and I'll bolt them up, and then I'll just mark the rest of them just because they're all a bit scratchy. And what the hell are you doing? Thank you. All right, drill. I will start with a small pilot hole, mainly because it doesn't walk, and I kind of want this to be bolted down accurate. And then I'll go straight to probably 10 mil. These are M8 bolts, so 10 mil will give me a good amount of clearance around the outside. You don't want to step up. I've said this before. You don't want to go, you know, pilot with a 3, then go to a 5, then go to an 8, then go to a 10. In drilling big holes, you want to go straight to your biggest bit. Drilling 10 mils straight through, if you've got a drill press, will work, and it will work great. Drilling steel is high pressure, low speed. You want to keep your bits cool. So if you want to drill really fast, you need to use some sort of a lubricant to keep your drill bit cool. Once your drill bit turns purple, you've cooked it. That's it. It's all done. It'll never sharpen up again. It's work hardened. It's junk. So that's sort of the reason people step up, is because it's easier to drill a few mil at a time. But what you actually end up doing is, if you're going from an 8 to a 10, you're only using the last 2 mil of your chisel, and you're not using all this part of the chisel. So this part wears out and this part is still good. So you're basically like blunting a drill bit really quickly. You can see this one here. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's actually got pieces taken off of the outside from where I've clearanced a hole. So I need to sharpen that before I can use it. So yeah, go straight to your biggest drill. If you're drilling bigger than about 7 mil, you do need a pilot. Anything up to 7 mil through, no matter what kind of steel it is, I'll smash it straight through. If I can get over the drill and like put all my pressure on it, I'll drill straight through to 10 mil. 12's a bit hard. You need to pilot for that. But yeah, if you've got a drill press, just smash your biggest bits straight through. Similarly for piloting, use the smallest drill so that when you go up, you're using, you know, the majority of the chisel. I tend to not pilot with a 3 just because it snaps so easy. I tend to use a 4 or a 5 just because it's the good balance between not snapping easily and being easy to drill with. But again, that's a personal preference. So I will sharpen this bad boy because, like I said, it is missing a chunk out there. So it's not going to drill very well. Cutting on one chisel only isn't the end of the world. It'll still do it. It just is a little bit slower than cutting on both, obviously. That's how my neighbors say hello, by the way. They fucking honk at each other. So this is what I'm saying. I can put this on here on the back side and do my bolt up. And then when I go to, why won't that go? There. When I go to weld the nut on, I can have this off to one side hard like that, and it will still line up, and I can still get the bolt out. But you can see, like, the edge of my hole is behind that bit of steel, which makes starting the bolt extremely difficult because it's sort of got to rub on that steel as it goes in. So that's a thing. You know, I'm probably going to cut all of this out because this is probably the most boring thing that I've ever put out. So that's all the way one way, that's all the way the other way. So I want to go about there, all the way back, all the way forward, about there, something like that. And now this is, why is it like that? It's 6 mil back to that flange. I need to go back a little bit more on this one. Let's go out here actually. That's 6 mil back there. That's 8 mil back. Is that the same piece as that? So I need to go 8 mil back. That's 8 mil back. 8 mil back, 8 mil back. believe it or not, that's not my drill bit that's bent either. Like, that drill bit's fine. It's actually the chuck of my drill that is bent. I know, right? Milwaukee quality. Like, you can see that wobble on that drill bit. It's in the chuck. Every drill bit I have wobbles. And this is actually a genuine Milwaukee, bought from a genuine store. It's not even like a cheap Chinese rip-off, which I've been looking at buying a grinder, and I don't really want to spend $600 on a brand new one. But on the secondhand market, you can buy knockoffs for $300 or nothing. That's all that's on Marketplace. Every one of them is a scam, and Facebook will do absolutely nothing about it. So I've been forging on here, and I've got my holes drilled now because I don't have the cap head bolts that go down inside. I sort of can't bolt it together, but what I've worked out is I can get that bolt in there and hold everything. Then I'm lining everything up from the back, and I can drop the bolt through from here, make sure it sits in there nice, weld the nut on, then when I do get the bolts, it'll come through. I've got a handful that will come through from the other side, but the head kind of gets stuck in the taper, and it's just a bit of a pain, so I'm going to do it this way. Should be fine. Will it actually be fine? Don't know. Should be fine though. I'm going to TIG them in for several reasons. I prefer it. It doesn't build up big tolerance of weld. Which isn't a huge deal in this instance, but where I'm welding here, I do get very, very, very close to that that flange, and I might have to actually notch a bit of it out. Plus, I also want to TIG this on here because, again, that's visual on the back side there, and I don't want an ugly MIG weld, and I don't want to have to grind it down. If I can get a nice TIG in there, that will be better. Now, I have absolutely no idea what kind of amps I want to run here, so I've picked 90 as a sort of an arbitrary figure, and I will adjust. So just a funny thing about this too, like I bought this from Summit in America, right? And it came in a Tilton box, but it had these like texture marks on them. And I'm like, I didn't do that. I didn't write that on there. And I thought, maybe I've rubbed it on something or whatever. I got some acetone the other day and wiped the texture off. There's actually a scratch along there that's been textured over. Now I'm like, did Tilton do that from the factory? Did Summit open the box and do it? Was it purchased by someone in America and returned to Summit, and the person scratched it and returned it. I honestly don't know. I'm a little pissed about it, but I'm not going to send it back to America and demand they replace it because it's got a little scratch on it, because it's only going to get worse. So, God knows I'm going to scratch it. I ruin everything I touch. Power was way too high, so I ended up with a nice black weld, but it happened quickly and it happened strong, so good enough. Let's let that cool down. I'm going to put the pedal box back on here. I'm going to make sure my bolt holes line up before I weld this in the car, obviously, because that would be bad otherwise. Okay. Slightly embarrassed to say that it took me this long to notice, but these are factory seat bolts out of a 206. They are a grade 10.9, you know, because they hold the seat in, so they're high tensile. They're also a cap head of sorts, so they take a T40 drive, which means that the head fits down inside and I can get a tool in there to tighten them up. I just need to get rid of this dicky washer, and because they're sort of a weird bolt, I don't use them for anything else, so I have heaps of these. So I already have bolts. I didn't need to go out and buy bolts, so I didn't just waste an hour this morning finding. I did need the captive nuts, so technically I didn't waste any time. But anyway, I have bolts. That is good. One of them is a bit gacked up just because of trying to get the seats out, so I'll bin that one and replace it with another one. I already have a couple in here and they're going in fine. They're turning in brilliantly, so hopefully the last two are golden, and I'll also replace that one with another one. And because they're pointy, I can also sort of put this in the car where it sits, and I can, you know, let me smash, please. I can give it a smash, and that will locate where I need the clearance for the nuts, and then I can just drill the holes in the floor, and then we can weld it in. Done, which is brilliant. And then I need to plumb it all in, which I don't know how to do. So learn with me as we forge on. Let's do it. Okay, jump cut into the future, and I've got this pretty much prepped and ready to go in. It was rocking a little bit, and I gave it a bit of a tickle with the big hammer, and now I've got a gap here, which is not a huge deal. Well, I mean, it's far less than ideal, but I do want this to be as low as possible to give me the most amount of room to the steering column, the dash and everything. So I'm going to live with it. I've drilled some holes in here, which I'll plug weld up, and I'll also plug weld this and this. This is all sort of this structure along here, this along here, and this along here. So I'll plug weld that, which will grab all of this. Like, this is flimsy as, but you know, everything helps. And then once I've sort of welded all of that up, then I'll pull it up to close that top gap up, and I can sort of dribble weld down onto it, and of course weld shrinks as it cools, so that'll kind of pull everything together and hold it under tension. I don't like, my logic sort of says that it'll be fine, and it might even actually be stronger. At least I know I'm going to get full penetration. You guys ready to see the most horrible thing ever? Yeah, that's it. So a lot of spatter, a lot of dags, a lot of these little guys floating around, and I got a few wormholes on them, obviously because you're trapping gas in your plug welds and it's not 100% clean, so it comes out somewhere. It comes out in the form of these little contamination worms. So I will cut those off. I will spend hours and hours and hours grinding all this up. It looks like I've got a little tiny pinhole just there I need to do as well, so I'll quickly burn that in. My welder, I don't know if it's a problem with the welder or if it's a problem with me, but every time I start a weld, it does like this weird thing where it just won't arc properly. And as soon as you let go and then weld again, it's fine, and it's fine again until you pause. And unfortunately, doing this sort of thing, you've got to pause a lot to get under the car and extinguish any fires. So, but anyway, I have persevered. It is welded in. It is quite strong. It looks to be quite warped, so we'll see how we go with that. But anyway, yeah, grinding. Let's do it. All right, so I painted it blue, because bitches love blue.
Got some blue. Bitches love blue.
I feel like I've already made that reference. Anyway, I painted it blue. Unfortunately, you can't blend with that hammered finish paint, the way it spatters. So it kind of looks like trash. I sort of wanted it to, you know, look more like where the factory oversprayed, but it is what it is. There's going to be a heel plate covering it, and it's dark down there, thank Christ. So you'll never see the bad welds and terrible paint and stuff. But that's it. That's how you install a pedal box the hard way. So for more life-changing tips and tricks like this, you know, be sure to stick around. Now I need to mount the masters, run the lines, delete the booster, delete the ABS. I need to order up the fittings that go into the calipers. I don't know what they are. I'll work that out. I think I have the fittings for the masters. I don't also have T's. I need T's, and I don't need a bias valve, but I do eventually need to get a remote adjuster for the brake bias, because it's a bit of a pain to adjust. I also need to get under the car and treat everywhere that I've welded under here, and all the other places that I've welded I've only ever undercoated just with black. I've got an actual like rubberized undercoating, which I'll put in over the top just to sort of stop any water getting in, because undercoat's quite porous and it will just wear away and rust. So that's gonna be it for this episode. Thanks for sticking with me. It's probably a long one. And what are you looking at? Why? What? Why? Hello? Come. Thank you. Yeah, so see ya.